Welcome to the deep dive. We're really excited to get into this stack of sources you've given us. It's quite a mix, actually covering how we think, technology, how we interact.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating collection. It touches on, our internal workings, how we deal with each other, the sort of complex tech world we're in now,
Exactly.
and crucially, how we can maybe navigate it all a bit better.
Right. So think of this as our mission. We're going to try and unpack the core ideas from all this material, connect the dots for you.
Basically, shortcut your way to getting a handle on it all.
Yeah, hopefully leave you feeling pretty well informed.
And maybe with a few aha moments along the way. There are definitely some surprising angles in here.
I think so too. Okay, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Right, part one, the inner architecture. Basically, how we think. For ages, there was this idea, wasn't there, that humans are just purely rational.
Oh yeah, the Homo economicus thing from Econ 101, this perfectly logical decision maker.
Right. But the psychology sources here, they paint a different picture, especially with this dual process theory.
Kahneman and Tversky's work, yeah. It suggests our thinking runs on two tracks, basically.
System one, that's the fast lane, right? Automatic, intuitive.
Instantaneous, like recognizing your friend across the street, or knowing 2 + 2 is 4, or, grabbing your old keys by mistake. Super efficient for everyday stuff.
But it takes shortcuts.
Exactly. It relies on gut feelings, rules of thumb, and here's the kicker from the sources. Even when we think we're using System 2, that slow, deliberate, analytical part.
Though doing the hard math or weighing big life choices.
Right. Even then, System 1, our intuition, our emotions, they're humming away in the background, shaping things more than we realize.
So we're not purely logical calculators after all. I mean, that Max Planck Institute research you flagged, decisions made before we're even consciously aware.
Yeah, it suggests our conscious, rational mind often just comes up with a story after the fact to explain why we did something.
Rationalizing, not necessarily being rational from the get-go.
Pretty much. It's a fundamental shift in understanding ourselves.
Okay, so those System 1 shortcuts heuristics, the sources call them, useful, but prone to error.
Definitely. They're mental rules of thumb, incredibly useful most of the time, but they lead to predictable mistakes, like the availability heuristic.
That's judging likelihood by how easily examples pop into your head.
Exactly. So you see news about a plane crash. Flying suddenly feels way riskier than driving, even though statistically...
It's the opposite. Or like checking the locks 5 times after hearing about a local break-in. That one vivid event just looms large.
It anchors your perception.
Yeah.
Which brings us to anchoring itself, relying too heavily on the first bit of info.
Like sales prices. The original price sets the anchor for the deal.
Classic example. Or that UN study mentioned, where completely arbitrary numbers like 10% versus 65% influenced people's estimates about African nations in the UN. Wild.
It's genuinely surprising how easily we're swayed. And priming. Exposure to one thing influencing your response to something else later, without you knowing.
Like the study where reading words associated with being elderly apparently made people walk slower afterwards.
Wow.
Now, some of those specific priming studies have faced replication challenges, we should note that. But the broader idea holds subtle cues in our environment constantly nudge our thoughts and actions.
So, our brains are using intuition, shortcuts, getting anchored, being primed. It feels like a lot is happening beneath the surface.
It really is. These are just a few ways our thinking is often automatic and follows these, predictable patterns.
Which leads us nicely into the confirmation trap, confirmation bias. This feels incredibly relevant today.
Oh, absolutely. It's that powerful tendency we have to seek out, interpret, and remember information that confirms what we already believe.
And ignore or dismiss stuff that contradicts it.
Pretty much. Like the fitness tracker example in the sources, if it says you burn 500 calories, great. If it says 200, it must be faulty today.
Yes, perfect. And the Peter Wasson 246 experiment, people trying to prove their rule was right instead of testing if it might be wrong.
Exactly. They'd test sequences like 8, 10, 12 if they thought the rule was even numbers increasing by 2, instead of trying something like 1, 2, 3 or 5, 8, 1, 0, 4, which would actually test the real rule, which was just any increasing sequence. It shows how hard it is to challenge our own hypotheses.
We're wired to confirm, not falsify.
And it gets stronger with motivated reasoning. When we're emotionally invested in a belief.
Like politics over Thanksgiving dinner.
Exactly. The source mentions how people looking at the exact same data can become more polarized. They filter it through their existing beliefs. Research actually shows identical facts can drive opposing groups further apart.
That is deeply unsettling. And the kicker, The bias blind spot.
Ah, yes, the bias about bias. We're pretty good at spotting these tendencies in other people,
Oh, they're definitely doing that.
but terrible at seeing them in ourselves. It shows how ingrained this all is.
Okay, so we take shortcuts, we confirm our beliefs, we can't see our own biases. What about confidence? Are we accurately judging what we know?
Often no. General overconfidence is rampant. Most people think they're above average drivers, for instance.
Guilty. I mean, statistically, that can't be true for everyone.
Right. And then there's the Dunning-Kruger effect. The original nuance is important. It's often people with low ability in the specific area who overestimate their competence the most, partly because they lack the metacognitive skill, the self-awareness, to recognize their own shortcomings.
But there's a flip side. The more expert you become, the less confident you might feel sometimes.
The expertise paradox, yeah. As you gain deeper knowledge, you become more aware of the complexities, the nuances, what isn't known. Your confidence becomes better calibrated to reality. Like the climate science example, read a few books, feel like an expert, study it for 5 years. You realize just how much uncertainty there is. Extreme certainty can actually be a warning sign.
So true expertise often comes with a dose of humility about the limits of knowledge.
Precisely. And closely related is the illusion of explanatory depth. We think we understand complex things way better than we actually do.
Like how a zipper works. Or a toilet. Until you actually have to explain it.
Or fix it. That washing machine repair example is painfully relatable. It applies to complex policies, theories, everything. Our understanding is often surprisingly shallow.
So we're often overconfident, especially when we know little, and we think we understand the world much better than we do. Is there any good news here?
Well, the good news is that gaining knowledge does help calibrate that confidence. Experts are better at knowing the limits of their knowledge. The goal isn't achieving perfect rationality that's impossible. It's about developing appropriate confidence. Recognizing your limits is actually a sign of intellectual sophistication.
Okay, that's a really useful perspective to hold on to. So, knowing all this about how our minds can, trip us up, how do we actually build strength? Let's move to part 2, building your inner strength and skills.
Right. Shifting gears from understanding the architecture to actively strengthening the core. This draws on the self-improvement sources, starting with mindset. Carol Dweck's work.
Fixed versus growth mindset. That's the core idea, isn't it? Believing your abilities are fixed versus believing they can be developed.
Like seeing your brain as a muscle you can strengthen. Her research, especially with kids, is compelling, showing how mindset impacts motivation, resilience, how you handle challenges.
And achievement, ultimately. The science backs it up too, right? Neuroplasticity.
Absolutely. The idea that the brain physically changes with effort and experience, believing you can grow, literally changes how you approach things. Like that accounting example, moving from, I'm just bad with numbers, to, okay, this is tough, but I can figure it out.
It's a powerful shift. So developing it means noticing that fixed mindset voice.
Yeah.
Challenging it.
Yeah, and embracing challenges instead of avoiding them. Learning to love the word yet, as in, I'm not good at this yet.
That yet is so important. Okay, what about inside-out effectiveness? That's from Stephen Covey.
Yeah, his core principle. Private victories come before public victories. You need to work on yourself, your character, your habits, before you can be truly effective in your relationships or work.
Starting with, be proactive. Habit 1. Taking responsibility, not blaming.
Focusing your energy on your circle of influence, the things you can actually do something about, instead of just worrying about everything in your broader circle of concern. Like the litter cleanup example, shifting from complaining to acting.
And moving from dependence to independence, then to interdependence.
Yeah.
You need that self-reliance first.
Right. And his idea of paradigm shifts, that changing how you see a problem is often the key to solving it. It's about perspective first.
Powerful stuff. And speaking of perspective, Viktor Frankl's insights, finding meaning even in horrific circumstances, that's profound.
Based on his experiences in concentration camps, yes. His core insight, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our power to choose our attitude, our response. That's ultimate freedom.
Even when everything else is taken away. That idea of tragic optimism, finding meaning despite suffering.
Not denying the pain, but finding purpose through creating something, experiencing love, or simply the attitude we choose towards unavoidable suffering.
And reframing challenges by asking, what is life asking of me? Rather than, why is this happening to me?
It shifts you from victim to respondent. And his point about happiness, it's not something to pursue directly.
It ensues, right? As a byproduct of dedicating yourself to something larger than yourself.
Exactly. It ties Frankl, Dweck, and Covey together beautifully, actually. This underlying theme of choosing your response, choosing growth, choosing where to focus.
Okay, let's get really practical. The science of habits, especially the morning routine stuff. Why is the start of the day so key?
Well, biologically, your prefrontal cortex, the executive function part of your brain, is generally sharpest in the morning. Willpower is highest.
And Roy Baumeister's research on decision fatigue. Every little decision drains that willpower.
Yeah. So automating decisions early on, like what to wear, what to eat first thing, saves that mental energy for more important stuff later. Think Steve Jobs and his black turtlenecks. Routine isn't about adding burden, it's about making the day easier.
And habits actually rewire the brain. Neuroplasticity again.
They do. Consistent actions carve out neural pathways. It becomes automatic, like brushing your teeth without thinking.
Though it takes time. That research suggesting 66 days on average, not just 21. Consistency is key.
Definitely. And you can be strategic about which habits. Exercise for dopamine and serotonin, mood and focus. Meditation for GABA, calming anxiety. Journaling can trigger reward systems. You're kind of gently hacking your brain chemistry.
I like that idea. And it reinforces the growth mindset, right? Proof that the brain can change.
Exactly. The London taxi drivers study stroke patients regaining function. It all shows that practice strengthens the brain.
So deliberate practice, pushing yourself just a little, combined with that 66-day consistency. That's the formula.
That seems to be the recipe, yes. It's about doing, not just knowing.
So pulling it all together from these sources of practical applications, what can people actually do?
Start small with a morning routine. Maybe meditation, maybe journaling, especially reflecting on what you learned from a failure, or setting learning goals, even just some movement.
Language matters too. Catching yourself saying, I'm bad at math, and changing it to, I'm working on getting better at math, or I have to do this, versus I get to do this.
Small shifts, big impact over time. And find community support if you can. Mastermind groups, online networks focused on growth, even structured learning platforms.
Again, reading. Keep reading good books. Compound interest for the mind, as they say.
Yeah. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about awareness. Noticing when you slip into a fixed mindset or reactive mode, and gently guiding yourself back.
That makes sense. Building that internal foundation first.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we take this inner strength and navigate the external world, social, business interactions? Let's move to part 3.
Right. Moving outward. How we connect and present ourselves. First impressions are huge, as the sources highlight. They can really set the stage. That coffee spill anecdote, memorable, but maybe not ideal.
No. So for professional intros, the advice is err on the side of formal. Good morning, Miss Smith, until invited otherwise.
Generally safer, yes. And then follow their lead if they say, oh, please call me Sarah. But also, read the room tech might be super casual. Law firms probably not.
And introducing yourself, keep it brief. Name, position, company, core responsibility, under 30 seconds.
Yes. Resist that urge to give your whole life story. I know I've been guilty of that.
Me too. And cultural differences are massive here. How you talk about achievements, exchanging business cards in Japan, physical greetings.
Handshakes, bows, cheek kisses. It varies so much. When in doubt, a moderate handshake and letting the other person initiate is usually a safe bet.
Common mistakes to avoid. Butchering names, just ask politely how to pronounce it. Weak handshake, checking your phone.
Forgetting names. Try repeating it right after you hear it. And maybe hold off on jokes or super personal questions until you've built some rapport.
Good reminders.
Yeah.
Next up, establishing credibility through language. Using the right words matters.
Absolutely. Using industry terms accurately shows you belong, but clarity trumps jargon. If you use a technical term, be ready to explain it simply. Misusing terms kills credibility fast.
And filler words, we all use them, but minimizing them in formal settings helps. A pause is often better.
It feels longer to you than it sounds to the listener. Practice really helps reduce fillers. Confidence markers also matter, saying, I recommend, or based on the data, sounds stronger than I think maybe?
The sources mentioned a tricky point about gender differences here. Women sometimes get penalized for using tentative language, I feel, in ways men might not be.
It's an unfair reality sometimes, a double bind. Be tentative, lack authority, be assertive, face backlash. Awareness is key to navigating that. The goal is balancing authority with approachability. Based on my experience, I believe X. Acknowledging others' points helps too.
And body language reinforces it all. Posture, eye contact.
Open posture, smiling appropriately. Even on a call, sitting up straight affects your vocal tone. It conveys presence.
Okay, let's tackle small talk. It feels like fluff, but it's crucial for building connections, right?
Totally. It's the social glue. Safe topics are things like current events, non-controversial ones, industry news, the venue, weather, maybe their role, sports if you know they care.
Like personal stuff is okay. Weekends, hobbies, books.
Generally fine. Just avoid the sensitive zones. Salary, health issues, relationship drama, strong politics. Keep it light.
How do you transition smoothly from small talk to the actual business?
Use bridge phrases. Well, before we dive into the agenda, or speaking of efficiency, that reminds me, then a clear shift. Shall we get started on the project update? Avoid jarring transitions.
And asking good questions is key, open-ended ones.
Definitely. What was the highlight of your trip? Beats, did you have a good trip? And ask follow-up questions. It shows you're actually listening. Oh, you went hiking. Whereabouts?
Active listening signals nodding. Maybe referring back to something they said earlier. And being aware of cultural differences in silence is important too.
Yeah, comfort levels vary wildly. You don't want to dominate or seem disengaged just because your cultural norms around pauses are different.
Okay, shifting to the digital realm. Digital first impressions. Same principles, different medium.
Pretty much, but with specific considerations. Email intros need to be clear. Who you are, why you're writing, clear subject line, professional closing.
Subject lines. Specific but short. No urgent, unless it really truly is.
Please no.
But yo.
Video calls, we all learned this stuff, right? Good lighting on your face, camera at eye level, test your audio first. Dress professionally, at least from the waist up.
And your background. Neutral, uncluttered, or a simple virtual one. Mute yourself when not talking. Try not to multitask visibly.
LinkedIn and professional profiles keep them polished, error-free. Personalized connection requests, don't just use the default message.
Following up digitally. Important, but don't overdo it.
Right. Wait a few days for an email follow-up, keep it brief. On social, maybe comment thoughtfully on a post. Avoid being the person who pings someone 3 times in an hour. Respectful persistence, not nagging.
Last point here. Cultural awareness in greetings specifically, so vital in global settings.
Absolutely critical. Missteps here can derail things quickly. Physical greetings vary hugely. Handshake, bow, kiss, wait and see, or offer a standard handshake.
Verbal greetings, too, formal versus informal you in many languages. Default to formal in business until invited otherwise.
And understand hierarchy. In many cultures, Asia, Middle East, parts of Europe, you acknowledge seniors first. Titles matter. Compare that to flatter structures like Scandinavia or the U.S.
So, rule of thumb, start more formal, then adjust.
Generally wise. Safer to be slightly too formal initially than too casual. And building rapport across cultures often comes down to showing genuine interest, asking questions respectfully, avoiding stereotypes.
Learning a few basic words helps, even if you mispronounce them.
It shows effort. And if you do mess up, a quick, sincere apology and showing you want to learn usually smooths things over.
Phew. That's a lot on the interaction front. Okay, let's zoom out to the wider environment. Part 4. Understanding the digital ecosystem. Starting with AI demystifying all the buzz.
Right. The core thing to grasp from the sources is AI today is fundamentally about pattern recognition, extremely sophisticated pattern recognition, but not genuine understanding or consciousness like ours.
So when AI writes a poem about love,
it's predicting the most likely sequence of words based on trillions of examples it's seen. It doesn't feel love. That distinction is crucial.
and narrow AI versus general AI, we only have narrow AI now.
Correct. AI that does specific tasks. Translation, image recognition, playing Go. General AI, human-level intelligence across the board is still theoretical.
The history is longer than people think, right? Back to the 50s, then AI winters.
Yeah, periods where funding dried up because the hype outran the reality. Early programs like Eliza mimicking a therapist. Then the deep learning boom in the 2010s, fueled by big data and computing power, gave us things like GPT and modern image generation.
But what can it do? That's important too.
It lacks subjective experience, true creativity, common sense reasoning. It can hallucinate, make up plausible sounding nonsense, like suggesting you feed chocolate to your dog. Dangerous.
Yikes. Highlights the need for human oversight.
Absolutely. And it struggles with transferring learning. A chess AI isn't automatically good at driving. Physical dexterity is also way behind even a young child. Robot vacuums still get stuck on socks. We're not near Skynet.
Good to know. What about the near future, say 2025?
Things are moving fast. Expect more multimodal AI handling text, image, audio, video together. Better few-shot learning adapting to new tasks quickly. Improved reasoning, though still imperfect.
But challenges remain. The black box issue, not knowing why AI makes certain decisions. bias in the training data.
Huge issue. AI can perpetuate and even amplify existing societal biases in hiring, loans, policing, affecting marginalized groups disproportionately.
And job displacement worries.
Right.
Plus, potential misuse, autonomous weapons, disinformation.
Significant risks, but also huge potential for good. Healthcare breakthroughs, personalized education, accessibility tools, accelerating science. It's a double-edged sword.
Quick terminology check. AI is the big umbrella. Machine learning learns from data. Deep learning uses neural nets.
Exactly, and they're all powered by big data, cloud computing, and data streams from the Internet of Things. Be wary of marketing hype, too. Not everything labeled AI actually is.
Got it. Okay, let's shift to social media. Also a double-edged sword, according to the sources.
Big time. It's amazing for connection across distance, video calling family overseas, fantastic. But the downsides, information overload, work-life blur.
That constant pressure to curate a perfect online self. And the mental health impacts anxiety, depression, body image issues, especially for teens. Seeing everyone's highlight reel can make you feel worse.
And the echo chambers amplifying misinformation, contributing to polarization, makes reasoned debate really difficult. Some sources even noted a possible decline in cognitive skills, like deep reading, maybe linked to passive scrolling.
There's also talk of platform disillusionment, losing niche communities.
Yeah, and the Buroligarchy point, how tech leadership demographics might shape platforms in ways that aren't great for everyone, particularly women, with issues like online harassment.
Content moderation is a minefield, too. Section 230 protections versus platform responsibility for harmful content amplified by algorithms. A huge legal and ethical battleground.
On a more positive note, that research about VR potentially reducing bias by creating shared cyber identities is interesting, fostering empathy through virtual experiences.
A glimmer of hope there. Okay, media consumption trends. Streaming's huge. Apple TV getting mentions.
And beyond just entertainment, these shows expose us to different cultures, language styles, accents. Valuable for language learners, actually.
Trends like nostalgic comedy revivals, complex plots. But the big story is social media video, right? Short form.
Massive shift. TikTok, Reels, Shorts. People spending huge chunks of time watching short videos daily. Virality is more fleeting now.
So creators need to specialize. Find a niche.
Seems so. Connect deeply with a smaller audience. Work with the algorithms. Like that home workout example, engagement tripled after niching down.
Instagram strategies mentioned. Optimizing your profile, mixing content types, user-generated content is powerful.
Building community, responding to comments, it's work. Video production is leaning towards budget-friendly, in-house stuff. Speed and volume matter.
You don't need Hollywood gear. A good smartphone, maybe a cheap gimbal, mic, decent lighting, often just a window.
Right, and editing is key. Grabbing attention fast. Starting with free software like DaVinci Resolve is totally doable. Avoid common mistakes like bad audio or jarring cuts.
We've all made those early mistakes. Hashtags still matter.
Yep, for discoverability. And social media advertising is increasingly important as organic reach declines.
So a comprehensive strategy is vital. Knowing your audience, content pillars, schedule.
Using a content calendar helps streamline it all. But interestingly, there's also a counter-trend noted, a resurgence of long-form content, podcasts, for example.
People craving deeper dives, more nuance.
It seems so. A desire for connection beyond 15-second clips. Maybe a natural human pushback against the algorithms, seeking balance.
That makes sense. Okay, pulling it all together. Part 5, strategies for the journey. Given everything we've discussed, what can we do? First, mitigating cognitive biases.
We can't eliminate them, but we can reduce their impact. Step 1 is just awareness. Knowing biases exist, especially in high-stakes situations like a big purchase. Research specs before prices to fight anchoring.
Actively seek disconfirming evidence. Force yourself to look for reasons why you might be wrong. Diversify your news sources. It's uncomfortable, but crucial.
Embrace diverse perspectives, in teams, in life. Different viewpoints challenge assumptions, catch blind spots.
Use structured decision processes for big choices. Checklists, or that pre-mortem technique imagining it failed and working backwards to find risks.
And simply, slow down, take a breath. System 2 needs time. Rush decisions are often biased decisions. The goal is better choices, not perfect rationality.
Next, conscious tech use. Applying what we learned about AI and social media.
Understand AI's limits. Use it as a powerful tool, but maintain human oversight. Don't blindly trust its outputs, especially the plausible-sounding hallucinations.
Be mindful with social media. Notice its effect on your mood. Resist constant comparison. Maybe schedule tech-free time. Recognize algorithms amplify certain things. And for creators' businesses, using social media strategically. Quality, niche, authenticity, budget-smart production. Hashtags, maybe paid ads. Have a plan. Engage.
And appreciate both short-form and long-form content. We need both quick updates and deep understanding.
Finally, the overarching theme seems to be continuous learning and adaptation.
Yes, embrace challenges with a growth mindset.
Keep seeking understanding about biases, tech, culture.
Be flexible. Adapt your communication style.
Build relevant skills, technical, communication, strategic.
The world keeps changing fast. Adaptability, fueled by continuous learning, is probably the key superpower for navigating it all. There's always more to learn.
Wow. Okay, we have covered so much ground. From the really surprising ways our minds work the biases, the two systems, to building that inner resilience with mindsets and habits, then looking outward at how we interact, professionally and socially, online and off, and then grappling with this huge digital world of AI and social media, and finally, trying to pull out some practical strategies.
Yeah, it's a lot. But I think the thread running through it all is our agency, the power we actually do have to shape our internal state, our reactions, how we engage with others and with technology. Knowing this stuff isn't just interesting, it gives us, better tools to make choices.
Absolutely. And it's grounded in research, in real-world examples from the sources you provided. Hopefully you listening feel a bit more equipped, maybe inspired to try a few things. Small steps, consistency. That seems key.
Right. So maybe a final thought to leave you with, something that kind of bridges our internal biases and the external tech we're building. If our own thinking is shaped by all these unconscious shortcuts and biases we've talked about, how do we make sure the technologies we create, especially AI, trained on our data, our patterns don't just end up automating and amplifying those very same flaws on a massive global scale? What's our responsibility, your responsibility perhaps, in understanding these tools, questioning their foundations, and maybe shaping how they evolve, given that they're increasingly shaping us?
That's a really powerful question to mull over. We definitely encourage you to explore the sources we discussed today. Check the show notes for links if you want to go deeper into any of these topics.
And please do use the episode chat if you have questions or thoughts sparked by our conversation. We'd love to hear from you.